The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Wednesday, July the 16th. I am Gabriel Kramer, a reporter and producer at IdeaStream Public Media and the moderator for today's conversation. Today is the second forum in the City Club's free outdoor summer series, which is normally held beneath a chandelier at Playhouse Square. Due to the weather, we're indoors at the City Club today, but we'll be back outside every Wednesday at noon through the end of the month. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the 1945 Negro National League World Series, when the Cleveland Buckeyes claimed an unexpected win against the legendary Homestead Grays. Through this moment, we created history in Cleveland. It's often overlooked in Cleveland sports. This underdog triumph is a powerful story with Cleveland at its heart. Created in partnership with the Baseball Heritage Museum and the Dunham Tavern Museum Gardens, Buckeyes, Buses, and Baseball is a new theater experience that combines spoken word, music, movement, and drama, and two performers make up a remarkable team that you can enjoy through this musical play. Today, we are joined by Eric Schmiedel, director, performer, and creator of Buckeyes, Buses, and Baseball. Hello, Eric. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We are also joined by Tina Stump, a performer and co-creator of Buckeyes, Buses, and Baseball.
Thank you.
All right. And Bob Zimmer, over on our far left, president and founder of the Baseball Heritage Museum over in Hough. Thank you, Bob.
Good afternoon.
We will be talking about the Cleveland Buckeyes and the role of the Negro National Baseball League in shaping Cleveland, our country, and the world. A reminder for our live stream audience, if you have a question for our guests, you can send a text message to 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the second half of the program. Members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please welcome Eric, Tina, and Bob. Eric, if you will, Buses, give us a brief synopsis of what to expect in this two-person show.
So the play is a combination of different theatrical styles. We did some research. Tina, our partner Khalil, and I did research into the Buckeyes and to the National Negro Leagues and Cleveland and baseball in general, and found topics and ideas that we really liked, and then we used those to inspire the theatrical vernacular that we would use. So we have music in the piece, we have sketches in the piece, and we have some monologues and things. It's constructed as 9 separate innings, and so each inning kind of bops on a different theme and idea so that the piece kind of flows quickly from ideas to history to people. All celebrating this wonderful story that happened in Cleveland and the Negro Leagues in general and baseball.
Yeah. Tina, it sounds fun, it sounds unique, different, certainly for a theatrical performance. Give me an idea of some of the things we're going to learn by watching this play.
Speaking of learning, one of my favorite pieces is the one Eric wrote. It's called Tina Learns Baseball. So I came to the project honestly, not knowing much about baseball, but I can do research. But the guys in this particular skit teach me how to play baseball, and anyone who's new to baseball will learn the game by the end of that skit.
Okay, so if you don't know baseball, you will be an expert by the end of the 9 innings.
You'll be an expert by the end of that.
Okay, wonderful. Bob, tell me, it might be simple to say, who are the Cleveland Buckeyes? But I think of this thought process of a lot of us know the legends of Cleveland baseball. We know Jim Thome, We know Kenny Lofton, we know Larry Doby and Bob Feller, but these are Cleveland baseball legends, and 80 years ago, they won the World Series. Who are these people, and tell us why we should be honoring them and celebrating them 80 years later?
Well, I think that it's really important to take a look at the players that participated in that game and really brought the Buckeyes to this championship. Most people will not recognize any of the names. There's a very few out there that are really well-known players, but Willie Grace was one of those players. Willie Grace was one of the first Negro League players that the Baseball Heritage Museum brought into Cleveland about 20-some years ago. And the other player would be Sam Jethro. Sam Jethro was an amazing player, but most people don't know those names. So it's really important for the Baseball Heritage Museum to tell the story of not only those, like you said, Satchel Paige, everybody knows, but Sam Jethro, probably not so many. Willie Grace, not so many. Eugene Bremer, who was from here, was a terrific pitcher. Most people don't know that. So our goal is really to help tell the story of all those unknown players. So if it wasn't for them, people wouldn't know all the big names.
And in Cleveland, we do a great job of celebrating championships when we can get them. Right. The 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, the 1964 Cleveland Browns, the 48 Major League World Series. Is that what sparks this idea of having this play to celebrate the 48 Buckeyes the way that we maybe celebrate the Cavs and the Browns of modern day?
Absolutely. So I've always been fascinated with the National Negro Leagues. When I found out about the story about the 45 Buckeyes, I thought, how could I not have known this? Through the Dunham, we made connections with Bob and Ricardo at the Baseball Heritage Museum, and they said, oh my gosh, we're doing this celebration for the anniversary. So it was sort of serendipitous that these things all came together. And it's, as Bob has mentioned, it's a piece of Cleveland history that we need to celebrate now. Now we can have some perspective about all the different aspects of these things that happened, and we can get the word out to folks about these wonderful players that thrived in a very complicated and difficult situation.
Tina, as a performer, as a star on the stage,
Yes.
how do you bring that to life? How do you bring these black legends of athleticism in Cleveland? How do you bring that to life on this two-person show?
Looking for connections, making connections between their lives, our lives today, the world today. And the history of the Negro Leagues is a very important part of African American history. So looking at the lives of ancestors and predecessors just gives me a thrill. That's what I love to see, connections between then and now.
The Negro Leagues was created out of segregation, out of racism. Is that, I mean, I have to imagine that's part of the show, right? To talk about some of the conflict they faced.
We put it in that context, yes.
Yeah, give us an example, because I the title is Buses in Baseball, Buckeyes, Buses in Baseball. That word buses seems intentional, right?
You are so right. One of the overarching themes is the fact that although they were famous baseball players and they worked hard every day, when they traveled, they couldn't stay in the hotel. They couldn't eat at a restaurant. They spent most of their working lives on buses. Quoting one of the lines from the show, they slept on the bus, they ate on the bus, they dressed on the bus because they didn't have any alternatives. But in spite of the hardships that they suffered, they were still champions.
Yeah. And if you go to the Baseball Heritage Museum over in Hough, you have these beautiful exhibits, jerseys of these baseball legends, and you'll learn a lot about these people. Bob, how much at the museum are we teaching people about the hardships they faced? I mean, we can call it what it is, the racism they faced in the 1940s.
I think you'll learn a lot. I think you'll see artifacts there and items that players actually carried with them. So, for example, a fellow by the name of Ford Smith, who actually pitched for the Monarchs, we have his travel bag. So, like you were saying, the players couldn't just go into any hotel. So this travel bag had to go wherever this player went and wasn't allowed to go into the hotel with them. So one of our goals is to really talk about the interaction of players to really highlight. Even today, we still have issues that we really have to work about, and we have to continue to talk about those things. So when you come to the museum, you will see a lot of artifacts that are focused on and went through that period of time when you couldn't go into a hotel if you were black or of color.
And Eric, I don't want to spoil the play for everybody, but can you give us some anecdotes of things that we'll see and learn throughout the play about the hardships and racism people faced as players, as managers, whatever they may be?
Sure. We, as Tina alluded, we created a song called "On That Damn Bus." I think I could say that in this forum.
I won't stop you yet.
Because there was a love-hate relationship at those buses. So that when we did the research, we started finding there were just lists of things, like the things that they ate on the bus, the things that they had to do on the bus, because at times they were playing 4 games in one day. So they were traveling to all these different cities, getting to the different games, and then having to drive through the night to get to the next game. So as Tina said, they're really doing a lot of living on the bus. So we thought it would be a good way to explore it through a song, because we could do all the lists of stuff that they ate: the sardines, pickled eggs, Cracker Jack, and cheese and stuff. And you could just imagine what the buses must have. The environment was like with these men who have just played 4 games and then they're having lunch and dinner in the bus. And so that's all incorporated in that one particular song.
I imagine being players in this league, I wonder if there was an aspiration to play in the major leagues, an aspiration to want to integrate Major League Baseball. It took Jackie Robinson to be the first player, and it took some other legends to follow suit, but is that part of this process of players? Were players thinking, man, we're enjoying ourselves in the Negro leagues, but I would love to show my talents off in the major leagues and try to strike out guys like Babe Ruth? Is that something that went through the minds of these players? Eric, can you talk about that?
Certainly. I think there's, as with much American history, there's this really push and pull, a positive and a negative aspect to the Negro leagues. One aspect is that there were just amazing athletics going on and amazing people and a lot of innovations that we think about: base stealing, bunting, all were created, I understand, through the Negro League activities. So there were wonderful things going on and amazing players. So I think there was a joy of that and a celebration of our black baseball. But there was also this tension with regards to the white baseball and the quote-unquote majors. So that was a way, if you could switch over, you could get more national recognition. So there was always this kind of push and pull. We addressed that through the character of Sam Jethro. Bob had just mentioned that he was one of the best hitters in baseball. Okay. And he got the opportunity, along with Jackie Robinson, to try out for the Boston Red Sox. But it was kind of perfunctory. Nothing really came of it. So there is that kind of sense of, well, when do we get recognition from that other side, even though we're celebrating all the wonderful things we're doing ourselves.
Yeah. Bob, we talked about how the Negro Leagues was created out of segregation. It was created out of racism, but it kind of became this beautiful thing, right? It became this thing where, again, we could showcase black talent, and we had some tremendous players. Can you talk about how there was this other league, just as good, just as talented, that people rallied behind, people got excited about?
Well, actually, some people would say that it had more talent than the major leagues, the white major leagues, because it was the black major leagues. And there was just a tremendous amount of talent in there. The players, not all the players wanted to go into the white major leagues because they felt comfortable, they felt they had a great program, and they didn't see the need to move into that. But once that barrier was broken, and the Negro League sort of dissipated, it really hurt black business. Right. And that had a huge impact on black business throughout the country.
Right, because there was this, kind of bizarre thing that happened where you had this league thriving. It means you had black owners of teams and you had black businesses, whether they were vendors or apparel suppliers for this league. And to integrate the major leagues, which on the surface seems like the right thing to do, seems like morally the right thing to do to fight segregation, to fight racism. But when that happened, you had these black-owned businesses.
It hurt business. It hurt the business. But it
Successful,
was the right.
tremendously successful businesses,
Very
right?
successful. But still, it was the right thing to do. And I think it's something that's very important for us to look at today. What's happening in the world today is that we really need to be talking about all the issues that the Negro League players went through, because it's still happening. I mean, it's not like it was, but it's still something we need to really be talking about.
Right. And, you know, Bob and I met a few months ago at the Baseball Heritage Museum, and we talked about this. Tina, when you hear the stories of us saying, you know, we met a guy who said his grandfather played for the Buckeyes and bounced around the Negro Leagues, and he's saying in 2025, I wish this league still existed. When you hear something like that, what does that mean to you?
I agree with it in some ways. When there was a separate Negro League, we had a thriving community. We had a togetherness that this is for us, by us. We were supporting each other. The restaurants, the dry cleaners, they all took out ads in the bills with listed the players. And it gave a sense of unity. We had something to celebrate. After decades of being downtrodden, finally we had a common goal, a common celebration. And it's a two-edged sword. Integration seems like the morally correct thing, but under segregation, we thrived. So what do? It's just really difficult to weigh out. But I'm very proud of the time when we worked together. We supported our own businesses. We celebrated our own.
Yeah. Before we started the show, I asked each of our panelists, where'd you grow up? Born and raised Cleveland. You know, we heard Sugar Heights, we heard Lee Harvard, we heard a little bit of West Side, a little bit of East Side. Being from Cleveland and being from the region, and I want to ask every single one of you, does that spark your desire to represent and support and celebrate the Cleveland Buckeyes? I'll start over here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I have two connections to League Park. My Granny Schmiedel lived on the near west side, near the Clark Fulton area. And she would take the train to see the baseball games at League Park, because there was a train that went right there and there was a stop that ended at League Park. And then my wife, Adora's grandmother and mother and aunt lived about a block from League Park, so they used to come see the games. So there's, it's not only fascinating as an artist, this history, it's also ingrained in my personal family history that people went to see these games at League Park.
Yeah. Tina?
Cleveland is home. I'm a native Clevelander. I love Cleveland. I support all things Cleveland. I'm a Guardians fan, I'm a Cavaliers fan, even a Browns fan. And when we celebrate historic sports, it just gives me a thrill, because that was the beginnings of where we are now.
Bob, you're a huge baseball fan, to say the least.
Well, I've got to say that the beginning of the Baseball Heritage Museum took place back in 1997 when Cleveland was hosting the All-Star Game. And there was not a whole lot being told about Negro League baseball. My dad had a jewelry business on East 4th Street, and most of our clientele were African American. I thought, okay, this is a great way to try to reach out and do something for my dad's clientele. I reached out to this fellow, Wilmer Fields, who was president of the Negro League Baseball Players Association. He was supposed to come in to do what was going to be a one-day autograph session, fireside chat about his experiences in integration in Negro League baseball and in life in general. He planted the seed for what we have today. So for me, Cleveland Buckeyes are absolutely the most important thing for us to celebrate through the Baseball Heritage Museum. And we continue to do that today, even though we look at the multi-aspects of the game, multicultural aspects of the game.
Go ahead.
I'll also say, one of the really remarkable aspects of the creation of our piece has been that we have a very integrated team of creators. So Khalil Just Cause Cage, our other partner in this piece, is originally from Chicago.
Yeah.
He's a young African-American, really talented writer and poet and speaker and leader. So he brought an outside perspective to this as we explored this history, and a young man's perspective to the writing and the presentation of the story. And then, of course, Tina's skills as a writer and a performer and a Clevelander and a vocalist has just been great. And we're also integrated then in age. We have all kinds of different experiences, so that's been a joy.
I want to talk about you two as performers. So, this weekend, the show that we'll be seeing is a two-person show, and you two, you wrote this, you created the songs. What's that like? I mean, if it's a two-person show and it's the two of you, you got to have good rapport. You got to have some kind of chemistry, right? Tell us about that and what it's like working together, and especially when it comes to writing this thing.
Well, Eric and I have known each other for decades. We worked together in a group called the Welcome Table. We're like family, really. I consider Eric my brother. And you start to think alike and you joke alike, and we vibe off each other. And it's so collaborative between the three of us, because one person has an idea, the next person expands it, we do things together, we do things separately. And it's wonderful because all those creative circles intermix, and it's fabulous. Now, Eric is very modest. He is our composer, and he's got several songs that he wrote in the show, and they all brilliantly capture the moments and the importance of the Negro League baseball teams.
Well, because we know each other also, I knew that, for instance, we talk about the third game in the World Series, which was a really remarkable game because a young pitcher by the name of George Jeff Jefferson, who was in his early 20s, really stepped up, and he shut out the Homestead Grays, who were like, as Bob said, like one of the best teams ever. They had like an amazing lineup of hitters, and he shut them out. The Buckeyes won 4-0. So I thought, well, this is a really interesting piece, but what was going through that young man's head as he was getting ready to pitch? So I kind of created this little riff that I knew Tina could sing beautifully, and then would kind of dovetail into the storytelling of what's happening in the game. So because we know each other so well, that helped that process.
Well, since you brought it up, I think not only did they win the World Series in 1945, but it was a huge underdog story, right? I mean, they were not expected to win. The Grays were this dominant team of the time, kind of New York Yankees-esque, kind of expected to win all the time. Tell us about these guys and how that series went out. How many games did it go? I think how shocking was this to the athletic world at the time?
Think about
You
oh,
got
great.
it.
So it was just that, Gabriel. The Buckeyes had a really amazing season. So they were the American League. There was an American League and a National League, just like in the majors. And they had a really remarkable season. Surprisingly, everybody expected the Birmingham Black Barons, to be the winners of the American League, but it was the Buckeyes. And so the first two games were in Cleveland. The first game was played at Municipal Stadium, ironically. And what's kind of interesting is there were, I think, if I remember right, there were like 3,000 people that attended that game. Buckeyes won, surprisingly, rather handedly. Second game was played at League Park. And it was a nail-biter, right? It went down to the ninth inning. It was the bottom of the ninth. The score was tied. The Grays had 2, the Buckeyes had 2. And Eugene Bremer, who's from Cleveland, the bases were loaded with no outs. And everybody thought they were going to put in a pinch hitter because Eugene Bremer, the pitcher, was the next one up. And they were like, Gene was a great pitcher, but hitter, maybe not the one you want in that situation. And Troop, the manager, put in Eugene Bremer, and then he hits a single and they score the winning run. They go up 2-0. But everybody in the country figured, well, this is a fluke. They won their first 2 games. Now the Grays are going to take over and finish the 7-game series. And this will tell you also what a standing that the Grays had in the league. They had 2 home places. So their first home was Pittsburgh, but their second home was Forbes Field in Washington, D.C. So it's like Washington, D.C. They're like the nation's capital. They were the team for the nation's capital. So the third game of the series was supposed to be in Pittsburgh, but it was rained out, so it was rescheduled for Forbes Field. And that's why I thought it would be fun to explore that game, because everybody figured Buckeyes are gonna fold. And they're never gonna, and now the Grays are gonna come in. It's Washington, D.C., it's a big light. There's no way these guys are gonna do it. And they did, they shut them out. So then by the 4th game, they had so much momentum that they won it. So they won it in 4 games. They stole the series.
Talk about a play-by-play. Pretty good, huh?
Bravo.
Took us there. Yeah. I wish it was televised. I wish I heard you on the radio telling us about this play-by-play. That was excellent. So it's an exciting story. We want to celebrate it, and that's part of what League Park is doing. That's part of what the goal is to help share these stories, bring them back to life. Tell us, because when you go to the museum and you go to League Park, you can't help but feel it. It's a modest place, but you go there and you can't help but feel the legends that were there. You can't help but feel, the home runs that were hit over the fence and the strikeouts that were thrown over the plate. And you do a good job at the museum. So tell us, for people who haven't been there, what's at the museum?
Well, I think one of the important things to remember is that the ticket house is original from the 2nd generation. But also, if I didn't mention Fannie Lewis, it would be a crime. Because if it wasn't for Fannie Lewis, League Park would have been built over by houses about 25 years ago. So she envisioned the field being utilized by kids and to have a museum there. So it's when you get there, you walk in through the gates. The museum's in the ticket house. It's got super stuff in there, all kinds of artifacts that tell the stories. But you also get the opportunity to walk out on this field. And the field, the dimensions, where home plate is exactly where it was when it was built in the late 1800s, and then when it was rebuilt in 1909. So you walk out on that field, the energy is there. It is holy ground for baseball. So I would encourage everybody to come out. I would definitely encourage everybody to watch these 2 with this play coming up, because it is just spectacular.
And before we get to the middle part of our forum where we ask people some questions, I want to take a moment to point out, don't they look great? Look at their apparel. We've got some great clothing on stage. A League Park Baseball Heritage Museum T-shirt. We got Cleveland Buckeyes
My
T-shirts.
skinny little shoulders.
But Tina's are particularly spectacular. Would you be willing, please? Because it's a great jersey, right? There's a surprise on the back. Tina Stomp, everybody.
Number 3.
I too am a Buckeye.
There you go. For those listening, Tina's last name is on the back of her jersey, appropriately. Very, very, very cool. So we are going to begin our audience Q&A for our live stream audience. A reminder, I'm Gabriel Kramer, producer and reporter at Idea Stream Public Media, joined here by Eric Schmiedel, Tina Stump, and Bob Zimmer, who look fabulous in their apparel. We are talking about the legendary Cleveland Buckeyes and their role in the Negro National Baseball League, which won the World Series 80 years ago. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, as well as those joining by way of our live stream at cityclub.org. A reminder, if you can, try to keep your questions short, to the point, and actually a question rather than a comment, so we can get to as many of them as possible. If you'd like to text a question, because maybe you're a little camera shy, please text it to 330-541-5794. I'll repeat that, 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the program. We have someone with the mic. Please introduce yourself and ask the question.
about an outsider's perspective enhancing the production. I know a lot of great films have been made about the United States by directors who weren't born here. I was wondering, is there any international talent involved in your production or in the Borderlight Theater in general?
Sure. So that's a great segue. Thank you for that question. Great segue into what we're a part of. So Buckeyes, Buses, and Baseball is a part of an international fringe festival called Borderlight. Gabriel had mentioned it at the very beginning of this discussion. Borderlight's a remarkable event, and I highly encourage everyone to come on down to Playhouse Square during the festival, which runs Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And there will be artists from around the country and around the world, and especially around Cleveland. I can't say enough for Dale Heinen and Tiffany Trapnell, the producer and associate producer of the piece, in their celebration of Cleveland artists. The opportunity for us to be able to share this piece with audiences here in Playhouse Square is just a treat and a great opportunity, and fostered us to be able to have this conversation with you here at the City Club. So there are international performers that are a part of Borderlight. We're all Cleveland-based artists in our piece. Although the league itself did include performers, athletes from all over the country, all over the world, predominantly from South America and the Caribbean islands, also found homes in the league.
And because it's kind of part of this topic, can you talk a little bit how there's flexibility in the show? It's a two-person show this weekend, but as the show grows and develops and you have more shows, you were telling me that there's different ways that you can change it up for the audience, right?
Yeah, it's a show. We liken it to 9 innings. So we can move pieces in and out depending on the target audience. We might do pieces that are a little different for a children's audience versus an adult audience. And depending on who's in and who's out. We've all contributed to the piece. We've got songs, skits, poetry, movement. And so it's very modular, and hopefully every time you see it, you'll see a different show.
I love that, nice. Question over here?
Yes, hi, Leslie from Cleveland. I have a couple softball questions for you. First off, your two-man play, when exactly can we see it this weekend? And as far as the museum and park, for those who've never been there, where exactly is it? What the address would be?
So the museum is located at 6601 Lexington, which is in the heart of Hough. It's just north of Chester. I don't know if you're familiar where the Cleveland Foundation just moved their offices to, or Gallucci's. So if you come up 66th Street, we're right there.
A landmark I know too well, Gallucci's.
Gallucci's, yeah.
And Buckeyes, Bases, and Baseball will be performed as part of Borderlight on Friday, the 18th at
5:45,
and on Saturday, the 19th at
2:45, and 6:45.
We'll be over at the Gund Dance Studio.
We're a couple doors down.
Yeah.
Other question?
Hi, my name is Merle Johnson, and born and bred in Cleveland. I appreciate you lifting up the name of Councilwoman Fannie Lewis, but I have to lift up the names of Don Freeman and the late Norma Freeman, who were really responsible for the survival of League Park. So I just wanted to mention that. But with such a rich history with black folks in baseball, when you look at who's going to the baseball games, you don't see a lot of black faces. So why is that, in your opinion?
I wish I had an answer for that, because I think that's an important question to ask, and it's an important issue to try to solve. So I think we're trying to get more young people in the inner city, people of color, to start to be interested in playing the game, and we hope to do a better job of reaching out to the community. And it was very important that you mentioned the other fellow's name, because the rec center is also an important part of the League Park story. So we don't only talk about baseball at League Park, we talk about the impact that League Park had on our community, the Hough community, the region, internationally. And the rec center is an important part of that story. So we'll work on it. But I wish I could give you an answer for that, but I just don't know what the answer is. I don't know if anybody else does.
Well, Tina, if I may ask you, because in addition to being a performer and a star, you are an educator, so you work with a lot of kids. We talked before the show about how maybe there needs to be more ways of introducing the game to the youth. Is there something, do you have any thoughts on how people can reconnect to the youth, particularly black youth, and baseball?
We need to get the children in on the ground floor. Some of our after-school programs could include baseball, softball, but children aren't being introduced to it. Something they don't know anything about. There's so much electronic involvement with children's free time. We need to establish clinics and actually get them involved to get them to games. So it starts with education.
If I could, we threw our first pitch out for the celebration of the Buckeyes back in September of last year, and we brought in an educator that did a forum for that. We went out to a school at East Cleveland, and the point that you make is that, and it was really touching to me, is that they had a classroom of kids, they didn't know what baseball was. And that was something that was really impactful. So for us to continue to tell the stories about baseball in general, especially about the Buckeyes and the Negro Leagues and its important impact on our communities, is something that we continue to do on a daily basis. But it's a challenge.
I do wonder if there's a barrier to access, whether it's to attend a game, with the cost of attending a game being expensive, or a cost of playing. You mentioned before this how the equipment to baseball can be rather expensive relative to other sports.
It is more expensive, and it takes more time and more commitment from not only the kids but from the parents to get them involved and to keep them involved. With all the other sports that go on now and all the electronics, it's hard to get young people to focus on the game of baseball.
Another question?
Hi, Bob from Lakewood. What was media coverage like in 1945? And did you have newsreels and recordings that you could access to help inform when you were developing the plays?
That's a fabulous question. There was not a lot of, from what we could tell, there was not a lot of film coverage of the league. There was, of course, a lot of print coverage. So we referenced the Call-in Post, which covered the Buckeyes while they were here, and used a lot of that in our research for the piece, and that's a lot more accessible. And we were talking about, for a variety of reasons, the stats for all of the players were not very well kept. Part of that was financial, because the teams were playing. If you're playing 3 to 4 games a day, it's hard to keep the stats for all of those games. But there was also a sort of, my understanding is that free agency, the idea of free agency of players being able to choose which team they want to play for, started with the league, because owners, there was a freedom there where owners could, if they found a really good player on another team, they could offer them more money for that player to come play for them. So the Grays often were guilty of maybe picking off players from other teams and offering them more money because they were the bigger team. So sometimes my understanding is owners kept some of those records, those stats, to themselves, so that people wouldn't necessarily know as good of players that they had.
Another question?
Yeah, I have a comment and 2 questions. My name's Adora. I'm from Cleveland Heights. And my comment is there's a library on the corner of League Park, and so sometimes I'm at the library and at other places. And to, on a Saturday, see boys and girls from across Cleveland playing on League Park is amazing, engaging, and I think people should know that baseball is happening on that field. And the other comment is, or the question is, baseball is called America's game. And in some ways, that is intimidating and sends a message to someone who may at times not feel part of America. So in watching this and listening, two things come to mind. One is, because Tina's part of it, I'm thinking, as a little Black girl, it would have been amazing for me to see you as part of a sport and a Black sport. Can you speak a little bit to, do you just play guys? Are there girls in this production? And then also, Eric, if you could maybe speak to, does this stop after Borderlight? Is it going to be a way to educate young Black Clevelanders about their history and invite them to play ball?
So part of my perspective in our collaboration is bringing the female perspective in. As someone who's learning about baseball, and when I started my research, I found out how many women there actually were involved in the Negro League process. Effa Manley was an owner of a team in New Jersey. I play men, I play women, I play a little kid, and it's I think refreshing to see the female side of it and how a woman relates to baseball. I wrote a piece about a little girl who wanted to play baseball, but the boys wouldn't let her play, which has overarching themes in it. So a little bit of feminism was thrown in there too.
And that little girl's a fan of baseball, so she knows all the stuff about the players. So it's not like she just has this ethereal idea like, oh, I think it'd be fun to play baseball. She knows it, and she feels like she can play it as well as the boys can, but they're just not giving her the opportunity. And thank you for the question about the future. So this piece, as we've alluded to, is fluid and can play to multiple audiences. Our idea is that we really want this to be an advocacy for the Buckeyes, for baseball, for Cleveland, for intergenerational audiences. Our dream is to take it to schools and to community centers. We're putting together a tour for the idea is 2026, so that we can play around venues in the area of Cleveland. And then our little dream is to take it out into the world. We'd love to we've talked about going to the National Negro League Hall of Fame in Kansas City, because that's an amazing institution.
We have another question?
Yes, so this is a text question. How does telling this story through theater, using spoken word, music, movement, and drama, open up new ways for audiences to engage with this story compared to traditional historical narratives or even museum exhibits?
Awesome.
Well, by using multiple formats, we're hoping to address a wider audience. Whereas a straight play may not interest someone, maybe the music will get them. You don't like plays and music, perhaps the spoken word potential will get you. We're trying to reach people in as many ways possible with the same thing about preserving the history of the Negro League, the Cleveland Buckeyes.
I'll also say that Tina and I are live performing artists. We're performing theater artists. So our first impulse is to explore theater, a live experience. And I think because baseball is best experienced when you're there, theater is the same way. We're able to explore with an audience in live time the events that happened in 1945 and beyond, and start a conversation about what happened. When we did a workshop production of this, we talk a bit about, there's a tragedy that happened to the Buckeyes in 1942. There was a car accident, 2 of the players were killed. And we addressed that in the piece in one of the sections. One of the audience members was inspired and came up and we had a conversation about this event. He then went home and did more research about it on his own. And then the next day that we did a reading, he brought that information to us so that we had it to enrich the piece. So a live production creates a really unique conversation between performers and audience.
So we have another text question. This one's for Eric. When you are directing a piece so deeply rooted in local history, how did you balance historical accuracy with theatrical storytelling?
Wow, that's another awesome question. So, I think what we've done is we've used the history to inspire us as much as possible, and then find ways for that inspiration to become theatrical, as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to do a play, quote unquote play, about this topic. So Tina's impulse to create something to express something about a girl's feelings about wanting to play baseball but not being able to play baseball, found its impulse, found its voice through that character that Tina creates, and she does a monologue with the audience, as opposed to us going, well, let's write a whole play and we're going to put the format onto the subject. We let the subject inform how we were going to explore them live.
More questions?
Yes. Great. This is another text question. What has been the most surprising or moving audience response, or just any response in general, you've received during this project?
I personally think people have been moved most by Eric's compositions, because when you tell a story through song, you're doing storytelling and you're also engaging the ear, engaging the eye, using multiple senses to experience it. Who thinks of baseball as something you sing in, but it's like musical theater. You have to suspend your disbelief and just believe, yeah, we're singing about baseball. But I think people are really captured by music.
I'll also say we had a really terrific experience. We had one of the audience members in our workshop presentation was from Kenya, and she had mentioned that she told us that growing up in Kenya, she had heard all these terms about baseball diamond and outfield, infield, but she never understood what any of that meant. And the piece about Tina Learns Baseball was like magic to her. She was like, oh, wow, now I understand what all these things are, and I make the connections. And I now know that a diamond is the infield, and each of the sides is exactly 90 feet.
Great. This question is, the Negro National League and the story of the Cleveland Buckeyes in particular represent a chapter of American history that many young people may not encounter in school curricula. In today's conversations around race, equity, and visibility, how can this story help younger audiences not only understand the past, but also see themselves and their potential more clearly in the present?
Deep.
Celebrating the past, informing the youth about what the ancestors have lived through, survived, and thrived in. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. So we have to keep the history alive. We have to keep children learning and let them know the glory and the celebration of our history.
I think the key, too, is to continue telling that story and continue to find new ways through theater, music, through actually playing the game, and keep the conversations going. And always keep the doors open for people to be able to come in and participate. I think that's critical.
I'm curious, Bob, you might know this, but the Cleveland Guardians, certainly a different franchise than the Cleveland Buckeyes, but today they are certainly the leaders of professional baseball in town. Early adapters, I suppose, of helping integrate the major leagues by bringing in players, Frank Robinson as a manager. And is there anything that you know of that the Cleveland Guardians organization is doing to help honor the Buckeyes? Or do you feel like there's some more things that they could or maybe should be doing?
Well, I don't want to speak for them, but they already do a tremendous amount for the city of Cleveland, for the youth in Cleveland. They fund a number of the baseball programs. They are very supportive of what the museum is doing, and we continue to do activities with them. They just had a clinic at League Park, I think it was on Monday, or it might have been on Sunday, where they brought in about 100 kids, mostly from the city, for clinics and they brought in players to help with those clinics. So it was an important aspect of what they do. But for the museum, we just need to keep our doors open and keep telling the story, keep the opportunities there
I'll say also, Matthew Grimes, one of the senior leaders in the Guardians, has also been very supportive of this project. And they've been retweeting and sending out information to their contacts about our little Buckeyes piece and celebrating League Park. And
I've got to say that your little Buckeyes piece is just spectacular. if you haven't seen it, then you need to come see it. I know that the opportunity is here this weekend, but there'll also be an opportunity at League Park.
Yes,
at some
in
point
September.
down the road.
Yes,
so.
in September.
Yeah, okay. In September at League Park is what I heard. Is that correct? Okay. Working out the details still?
We're working out the details for this, but in September, September 19th, the Baseball Heritage Museum is celebrating the Buckeyes' 80th anniversary, which took place on September 19th. There will be an event at the Music Box, but on the 20th, we're bringing in, most of the players are gone, but the opportunity was to bring family members in. So you will get to meet kids and grandkids of the players on the 20th of September. So that's important.
Very neat, very cool. We have more questions, it seems?
Well, speaking of, League Park is such a historic venue. What role does it continue to play in educating the public about baseball's legacy, particularly in Cleveland Hugh's neighborhood?
So we have ongoing programs for the history of the Buckeyes, the Negro Leagues. If you go to our website, baseballheritagemuseum.org, you'll see a number of activities that we have coming up. Actually, this weekend on Saturday, we have a young artist from Cleveland Institute of Art is having a one-woman show about the Buckeyes. So she took the opportunity to develop, I think it's about 16 paintings that really bring out the character of the Buckeye players. So it's a really cool thing. Peter Lawson Jones will be doing a reading of some poetry there. So we're doing all kinds of really good things at the museum to try to continue telling the story.
When we first started working together over a year ago, we took our first field trip together, Khalil, Eric, and I, and we met one of the docents at the museum, Auntie Brenda. She gave us such a beautiful illustration of the glories of baseball and the glories of baseball history. The docents there are so engaged with baseball. They love the place, they love the story, and they love telling it. So if you leave there not loving baseball, there's just really something wrong.
We have more?
Yes, this is our last question. What do you all hope audiences feel or take away from your performance, especially those who may not be familiar with the Buckeyes or the Negro League history?
I think we hope that they are inspired to continue to explore the players and this history, baseball in general, and celebrate Cleveland and the remarkable history that we have here and the remarkable theater artists and artists that we have in our community. We're such a rich region here from journalism to fine arts to performing arts. So hopefully this play fits into that community of artists and inspires.
That was the word I was going to use. I want people to be inspired. I want them to celebrate resilience, overcoming, and success in spite of difficult odds, because those are skills we all need, especially in the world today.
Bob, go ahead.
I want more kids to come to League Park, as you mentioned, and we're always looking for ideas to try to bring more kids to the field and learn about baseball, but not just baseball, about the history of our neighborhoods, which I think is really important.
We have time for one more, so I'll ask the three of you to go down the line one more time. But similarly, what is the message about the Buckeyes? What is it that you want Clevelanders, the world, to just know about this team that won the Negro League World Series 80 years ago?
That they were here, that they were here and they achieved this remarkable event and inspired the community. I kind of mentioned there were about a few thousand people watched that first game. There were 10,000 people who came to League Park for the second game of the series. And then there were thousands and thousands of people at Forbes Field for the third game. So that, even just that, in the day, the interest in the game and the people grew as a result of this event.
I want people to know that the Buckeyes had an indomitable spirit in spite of the current times, in spite of racism, segregation, awful situations they had to be in. They were dedicated, they were loyal, and they persevered. I think perseverance is one of the overarching themes in our piece.
Bob, go ahead.
I'm going to just say with one word, champions. The Buckeyes were champions here. So I don't think there's much more you can say.
Audience, if you will, one more time for our panelists. Thank you to Eric Schmiedel, Tina Stump, and Bob Zimmer for joining us at the City Club. We were here talking about Buckeyes, buses, and baseball, a two-person show that you have two opportunities this weekend to see. This forum was made possible through partnership with the Borderlight Festival. The City Club's Outdoor Summer Series, today unfortunately indoor because of weather, is presented by Thompson Hine and also part of the City Club in the Community Series, sponsored by Bank of America. A special thanks to Playhouse Square IT for making transmission of this live stream possible. Up next for the summer series on Wednesday, July 23rd, will be a conversation with Ricky Smith, founder of Random Acts of Kindness Everywhere and owner of Something Good Social Kitchen, a casual walk right outside a food stand right here in Playhouse Square Plaza, where for every meal sold, one meal will be donated to people in need. We'll be talking about what it actually means to do something good, as Ricky puts it, and supporting the community in positive and powerful ways. You can see what else is next in the free outdoor summer series at cityclub.org. Thank you all once again. Thank you so much. Thank you, members and friends of the City Club. Thank you to our panelists. My name is Gabriel Kramer. Our forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.